What is up, guys? Matt Vaughan here with CardsChat, back for another video, and want to kick it off right where we left off. In the last video, in case you missed it, we went over this part of the study suite for GTO Wizard. We are going to get a little deeper into the study streets now and go into the reports. You can see that river reports are not available, but if I jump to the flop, and do reports, we can go to flops. And what this allows us to do is see from this particular node, node just being like this action, this part of the game tree. In this case, it's been a low jack open, a hijack 3-bet, 100 big blinds effective in an MTT where the low jack calls. And now we want to see, like, at a glance, what the strategy breakdown looks like overall. And you can see that because we're on the low jack node, it's showing, first of all, at the top, the overall strategy. So for example, what they're doing on every single board, totally aggregate, which is super cool. I geek out about this stuff so much because it's like, at a glance, you can see that if low jack didn't know how to play 3-bet pots at all, and you just had to tell them, all right, what do you do? I don't know anything about the board. I only know what happened in the hand so far. If you just told them to check 100% of their range, 100% of boards, it's like not underperforming that badly. Like, it's just so infrequent for them to lead that if that was all you ever told them, they wouldn't be going too far off. Like, they probably wouldn't be losing much. So I think that's really interesting. But what we can do now is we say, okay, well, we know that a ton of these boards are going to be like 100% check, 99.9% check, whatever. Who cares, right? I want to know about the boards where that's not the case, because it's not every board, right? You can see that. So if we sort by percent check, we can see all the ones that are 100% check, but there's going to be tons of them, so that's not as useful, right? But if we flip it the other way, we can see the boards with the lowest frequency of check. And you can see there's not an inconsequential amount of them where there's a good amount of leading. And what I think this is so good for is you can start to see patterns. So you don't just say, okay, my board is 9-8-7. What do I do on 9-8-7? And then in another hand, my board is Queen Jack 10. How do I do Queen Jack 10? You say, what are the properties of the boards where I have a leading range? And then you can dive deeper and say, okay, what hands do I lead, and how do those hands decide to lead? Like, what are the properties of the hands interacting with the board that leads to that? But first and foremost, you can see what are the board types where you would think about having a leading range. And right away, there's massive consistency here. It's almost always, for these top ones, it's first of all a rundown. So it's 3 cards in a row numerically. 765, 765, 876, 765, 765. And you have, these look like they're almost the same, but like, for example, this is, rainbow. This is two-tone, but with the unique suit being on the bottom. This one's unique suit in the middle, unique suit on top, etc. So a lot of these boards are very similar, but I wonder if I can group them. Oh no, that's only grouping my actions. Okay, so I will actually do that just so that the view is a little bit easier now. So this is just grouping them into bet and check, and you can see how often we lead versus how often we check. But you can see, okay, we get an 876, 987, 543, 764. Okay, this is like the first one that's not a perfect rundown. It's got a gap, but you'll notice the gap is lower. So the top 2 cards connect. 543, 987, monotone now also as well, still a high frequency lead. As we scroll down, 976 does have a gap. 875 does have a gap. So we are seeing some with gaps. 763, that's a larger gap, but it's monotone. And let's see, and they're all low, right? You'll notice it takes a long time to even get to 1098 as the next highest board. Like, are we even going to get to a face card? 1098. Can we get to a face card? Can we do it? I believe. Okay. finally, right? So you'll notice we had to scroll a lot there just to get to Jack 8-7, and Jack 8-7 is only 14% lead still. So there are hands that are doing it, but it's still not even like significant, right? So one really cool thing from reports that we can do is we can practice this spot or we can study this spot. Now, my favorite thing about GTO Wizard is that when you do that, it doesn't take you away from the screen you're on. It opens a new tab or a new window, I think, depending on your settings, maybe. But why this is so powerful is because now I can go back here and I can say, all right, Jack 8-7, that one's kind of weird. So I can keep scrolling and say, maybe I want to do, oh, ace high. That's the first ace high board I've seen. It is monotone, so I'm kind of curious what that looks like. And I can open these up separately, and they're just both there and ready for me. So one way I could work on this would be to use the reports and run through until I found some interesting boards, open it up to study it in a little bit, and then continue scrolling, right? The other way I could do this, and I'll do this on Jack 8-7, I think, maybe. Jack 9-8 is fine. I can practice this spot as well. So what it's going to do is it's going to drop me on this flop. And it is a custom spot. So it's got a specific stack depth with the specific actions that have occurred so far. And then, well, now it's just going all in. I'm not really sure why that is. Hijack, call. Oh, I see. It didn't start me from the flop. It started me all the way from the river because that's all the stuff that I had plugged in from the studied spot. But what we can do is just go to this flop. So if we select a low jack as the node, because we were basically saying, all right, we've defended the 3-bet and we want to know what we should do next. So we want to know whether we should be leading this. So I'm going to say confirm, and I'm thinking it's going to drop us on this node specifically. So this board, and we're the low jack, and we're deciding whether to lead, how much to lead, etc. So what's really cool about this is now I get to intro you from the studying into the trainer, which is what I frankly think is probably the absolute best part of this. There's a lot to take in here, so I'm going to kind of just go through each of the pieces before we run through any of these spots. On the left-hand side, you can see the drill. You can save drills. You can just create a drill in isolation and run it. And you can do all sorts of things. Like you can either play the full hand, so it'll drop you in a spot and then you have to play the rest of the hand correctly, well, as correctly as you can. You can play this street, which means, for example, if I decide to check, then they decide to bet, and I have to decide whether to call or fold or raise or whatever, right? So if I call, that would mean that you would go to a turn card in a real game. But if I say street, it's going to just end the hand there. Then if I say spot only, it's going to drop me there and only do one action. So the nice thing about spot is that it's very targeted. It's very efficient. And I think that's probably what we're going to do right now. And it allows you to see in a nutshell, like what you're doing that the solver or this pre-solved solution agrees with or doesn't agree with, if there's egregious errors, and you can look at those after the fact. The difficulty has to do with the number of bet sizes that are available. Standard would be every bet size that their sim has available. Grouped would change it into small, medium, large, and overbet. Although a lot of them will just have small, medium, large, or not even that many options. And then simple is just check or bet. I mean, for our purposes, it's probably okay to start with check or bet, but I think if you're not ready for the standard difficulty, which is like picking a bet size, and that's really tough, I would probably start with grouped, just because this should capture more of like what you're trying to accomplish, whereas simple is like really only capturing whether you want to bet or not. And that's not how we play poker. Like when you play poker, you're not going to go, oh yeah, I have no idea what size to make, I just know I should bet. Like the difference between 10% pot and an overbet is so drastic that I think you really want to at least be here. That's my perspective, but obviously you can your mileage may vary, and whatever you feel like you're ready for is fine to start with. But personally, I usually just do standard because I think that that's how I want to be playing poker personally. And then input mode, you can choose a single action, or you can set the frequency of each action separately. Now, this frequency thing is nuts. It's like, so I'm just going to show you how it works because I think it's just crazy. I think this should be a really low frequency bet, but like maybe I think that we bet threes 10% of the time. Oh shit! Was I literally perfectly right? What does it say? It's going to give me the breakdowns. Okay, I wasn't perfect, but I was like really close. So this combo is checking, at a like really high frequency. If we go to the next hand and do the same thing, why do I have the same hand? And say like always bet, it's going to be like, dude, what's wrong with you? Now, it doesn't seem like it's letting me pick a sizing, which is pretty interesting. So I'm not exactly sure. I don't know a lot about this frequency selector because I just don't do it. And you can see that technically over here on the right, we got a check mark because it is an action that is taken with threes, but it's not taken very often. So it's not giving us a lot of credit for this. It's giving us a pretty bad score. So over here on the right, I kind of jumped the gun here showing you this, but this history lets you see sort of how you performed in each spot, the EV of all the actions. We're not going to spend too much time on this because I think it's more interesting when you've played more hands. You can see this little breakdown of your EV loss according to the solve, the score it would give you. So you notice that even though I technically didn't lose EV, it's giving me a bad score because I put in an action that was very low frequency. So personally, I don't like using the frequency selector. I think it's really difficult. And for the most part, it's not what I'm trying to do. Info is a tab that is basically cheating. It shows you your range at this spot. It shows you like what that range wants to do. If you show ranges, it shows you like the equity distribution. So like all that stuff it's fine to study, but in my opinion, if you're going to study, use the study tool. So I found it kind of funny. Like this is so you can check after the fact, I guess. But personally, I just I leave this not even just hidden for this part, but just like literally closed. And then on stats, you can just see like the broad overview of what's been going on. The last thing I'll say before I show a cool feature is that you can do this pause game after, and it'll show. It could either pause every time. Let me actually go back to actions and say, like, let's say I check. It's going to pause right away and show me the exact breakdown of every available option. Or if I want to do mistake, it would only show me this pop-up after I did this little like info sort of question-y, like, that was okay, but it wasn't great. Or this like blunder signal. So these are blunders. Versus inaccuracies, which is kind of like a chess term, but I think applies well to poker as well. So I like to leave it on for mistake so that it pretty much only pops up when I've done something somewhat egregiously bad, for the most part, sizing wise. But otherwise, I will close this. And then if you want to like be a little faster, you can set up multiple tables. You can even set up time banks on those tables that will kind of rotate around here. I usually do one table at a time because that mimics what I do the most, which is either one table WSOP.com or Club GG or playing live. And all of those are single table for the most part for me. So when that's the case, I select one table, and I don't usually use a time bank, although you can. And then like, yeah, you can minimize all this stuff. You can set it aside, whatever, but there is also a focus mode. And I think the hotkey for that is just F. Yeah. If you do focus mode, it really cleans it up. Like there's just nothing else distracting you. There's nothing else in the way. You can just undo it by hitting F again. But like you don't even see all this junk at the top that's like, I mean, you do because it's still here, but they make it smaller. It's cleaner. Personally, this is my preferred way to use the trainer. So let's run through a few spots just to see what my thought process is. Well, actually, what I'm also going to do is I'm going to change the spot to not be just this board because I think once we've Well, we'll do a few on this board and then we can go from there. But I also wonder if I can make this bigger. Aha, you can make it bigger. So that's pretty cool. You can go into focus mode. You can make it a lot easier to look at. And yeah, I think that this is a pretty cool way to study. So King, Queen of Clubs, I just personally would think that this hand is, it's almost like too good to bad and too bad to bad at the same time. Like it can realize some equity by just when it goes check, check. And when it bets, I don't think it gets folds from too much better. It doesn't have good barrel potential given the suits. So I would just probably check it always. You can see it's not checking 100% of the time, but it's doing some mid-size leading, which kind of makes sense. Like you want to pressure hands like ace high to fold. So a bigger size, if you are going to bet, is probably pretty necessary. The rest of the sizes that it chooses, you can see there's like a sprinkling 2.5% here, 1.8, 2%, 0.7. They're not technically blunders, right? If you look at the EV of each of these actions, they're like very close to the EV of checking or of betting the larger size. But they are technically less enough in EV that it calls it a mistake. And even though it is mixing them in, it's going to say basically that like, yo, 85% plus 7.5%. I mean, like you really don't need to be doing this other stuff. So it's kind of a mistake. Definitely don't go all in and lose 3.6 big blinds of EV though. So next hand, King, Queen of Diamonds. Now this is one I would probably lead at a little bit of a higher frequency, maybe for a block size. I could see this using a smaller size simply because getting to a diamond seems a little more beneficial with a hand like this. I don't know. 10% might be a little ambitious, but I kind of like quarter pot. Nope, it's still like mostly checking. Wow, I thought it was going to bet significantly more, but it does allow now for an even bigger size, which is pretty interesting. And at this point, this is where I would probably now complete the circle and study this spot. So I would make this small again and come out of focus mode, and go over here to history. Whoops. Come on. History, and then I can do study this spot, which granted I might have already had open, but did I already have that open? No, I didn't. Oh yeah, there's the Jack 8-7. Okay. So I could study this spot and say, okay, King, Queen suited. What is it actually doing? It's doing it is doing like a tiny mix with like everything. I thought it was going to be much more heavily favoring the King, Queen, and Diamonds combos, because we could like, I don't know. Well, maybe at bigger sizes, it's actually folding out some like ace-x of diamonds. I wonder if that's the case. So 75% was a size that was used. Are they ever folding ace-x of diamonds? They're never folding. They are folding ace-6 suited in diamonds. So that kind of makes sense. Like if you can get some backdoor diamond combos that dominate you to fold at a bigger size. But like, let's say if we do quarter pot, which is what I chose, is that hand just like never folding now? No, it's still folding some. So pretty interesting that it didn't like my size. I would have to dive a little deeper. I don't want to take like another 10 minutes of this video to dive into that, but let's just go back now to our trainer. We'll go here, and then what you can do is after you've run all these sorts of spots, what you could do is now, first of all, you can do play from here. Sorry. We can end the session, and now we can say, all right, that's interesting as the out of position player, but what about when they check? Because our opponents, when they're the low jack, are pretty much always going to check. Now what does my hijack strategy look like? Confirm. And now we can start training as the in position player. And so what ends up happening is like you can just run a targeted spot like a bunch of times in a row and get a ton of mileage in a relatively short time period through the use of the trainer with the study tools and with the reports. So you can kind of like define your own study path, pick board textures that you have trouble with, you can even pick hand classes that you have trouble with, I think. Let me actually back out of this and see if I can go into that. I forget if this is only a pre-flop selection or, oops, that's the wrong setting, sorry. Sorry, go to the controls of the drill and board hands. So we can actually, no, we can't do that. I'm sorry. So pre-flop, with pre-flop hand selection, you can actually, with pre-flop hand selection, you can remove hands out of the option. So if you just want to drill pre-flop, which I've done before as well, I think I might even have a drill for it. So if we stop this and I go to my drill, all pre-flop spots, 40 big blinds effective, advanced settings, I can go to the hands and have it only deal me like a reasonable set of hands. Like I can just remove a bunch of nonsense hands. I can remove like really easy spots, hands that I think are just like, that I always know how to play. Like this might be a reasonable thing to do and confirm. And now if I start training, it's going to show me, a bunch of spots that are a little more interesting. So in this one, the tricky thing about this is it just drops you in the middle of the spot. So sometimes you kind of have to like look at this. You're like, okay, low jack raised, we 3-bet, then they jammed. It's like, okay, now I get it. This is probably a fold. Okay, we didn't make a mistake, so it didn't tell us anything. So that's kind of nice. Did I accidentally set the node to like always be an all in or something? No. Okay, good. That was just variance, everybody. That's a good illustration of variance. Okay. Small blind. This is going to be a clear fold against probably any open. Also probably a fold. I want to at least wait till I make a mistake so you guys can see kind of how I think about this. We get 3-bet with the jack 4 suited. I'm just going to fold. I don't think it has enough playability. I'm going to fold. This one's interesting. 3-bet out of the big blind, usually a little polarized, probably like mostly hands that do well against us and then some bluffs, but we're not crushing bluffs. Our playability isn't amazing. I could see this being a call at some frequency, but I think fold is what I would mostly do. Easy defend. You notice that because we're just playing the spot, even when I click call, we don't go on to the next street, which would be the flop. I'd be calling here. 3-bet. I'm not actually sure if we jam at 40 bigs, but I'm going to say jam, and if it's a mistake, then it'll pop up. Okay, I'm too good at pre-flop. Fold. Nice thing about this too is it only ever deals you spots that you would ever actually end up in with proper ranges, or with the pre-solved ranges rather. This is an interesting one because it's blind versus blind, much more nuance in the strategy here. Just to talk quickly about it, just because I think it's interesting. If small blind limps, like a lot of times I'll actually raise a lot of the very weakest hands, or like a king 4 offsuit where I think I can get, king 5 through king 8 to fold. And where I can't like get value out of a lot where I don't dominate a lot of hands. 8-6 off just like kind of plays pretty well though post, and I don't think we get a lot of better dominating hands to fold by raising, so I would just check. That's a fold. I feel like this one might technically be a really low frequency 4-bet rip or something. I don't know. Maybe that's nuts. Let's just do it so that we can see the mistake. Yeah, okay, good. It's losing. I was like, this better be a mistake. Otherwise, I don't know. So nice thing is when we do make a mistake like this, and it is faster. So if we're pre-flop, obviously like, we should be able to breeze through a lot of 40 big blind spots pretty quickly. Could see right away it's a 100% call. Never fold, never all in, always call. So we can go to the next hand, and then I'm going to come out of focus mode, and I just want to look at my session here, say, okay, I'm doing 86% according to them. I had one blunder it was a deliberate, I probably shouldn't have done that deliberate blunder, but here we are. And yeah, I think that's where we're going to call it. So we've gone over now basically GTO Wizard as a whole, kind of like the three pillars of how they provide strategy. I'm not going to go into their study videos because obviously it's like not really fair to show an actual like piece of content that's theirs that you can't get without a subscription. But I hope this gives you a kind of like rough breakdown into what it's all about. In the next video or two, I'll probably use GTO Wizard a little more in depth to either show you how I would study in a specific kind of trainer spot, or just run through a study session with you, because I think that could be kind of cool to talk about my thought process in like maybe slightly higher complexity of spots, and then maybe diving into more like hand-by-hand solution analysis of spots I've played either live or maybe on WSP.com, where I can't just input it into the analysis section of their software. But yeah, hope this has been helpful. I'll see you guys in the next GTO Wizard video. This has been Matt Vaughan with CardsChat, and yeah, we'll see you soon.